Welcome to Kelowna, British Columbia. We have taken our favorite show on the road.
Turn provider here into the mix-up, and Banga, the opening goal. And in a flash, 3 minutes into the second half, Schwanier and Buddy Banga combine, and the champions have the lead.
What a finish.
Supporters strong. Witness a very entertaining match.
Little rock and roll there to recap what was a historic week in the Canadian Premier League as the CPL went on tour for the first time, playing in Kelowna, BC. And on today's edition of the CPL Newsroom, presented by Volkswagen, we'll break all that down, plus all the thrilling action that preceded that as well. I'm Mitchell Tierney, no Charlie O'Connor-Clark this week on the show. Apparently, after spending times, on yacht parties in Kelowna, he no longer has any time for us. But we'll hear from Charlie of the past as he caught up with Vancouver FC's Sebastian Jaskowski and Cavalry's Malcolm Shaw live from the Apple Bowl yesterday. We'll hear about that in a few minutes' time. But in his place, we've signed One Soccer's Alexandre Gangué-Ruzic to a short-term replacement contract. AGR, an absolute pleasure to have you on. What did you think of what was a pretty wild weekend of CPL action?
Yeah, I guess first off, great to be on, Mitch. It should be a good time. I'm not quite Charlie. Don't have the flowing hair, but we'll do our best here. He had a nice weekend in Kelowna. I hear the fruit, the vineyards, everything out there are magic. So don't blame him for taking the morning off. But no, it was a good weekend. I mean, you saw some key results. The first game of the weekend ended up being super entertaining in terms of goals. Some key wins in the table, some key trends continue. 10 games in now for some teams, you kind of really start to take stock of where everyone's at, and that's kind of exciting. So you can look at numbers, you can look at players. Okay, this season isn't maybe an anomaly, and I think all that sorts of stuff is awesome to dive into.
Yeah, exactly. And just 3 points now separating, I think, second from six in the Canadian Premier League. So get ready for some wild overreactions on this show and the ones to follow as, things will go up and down in the standings over the next few weeks. But let's run quickly through match week 10 in the Canadian Premier League. As Alex mentioned, began with a wild match in Winnipeg on Friday, which saw Pacific SC storm out to a 2-0 lead in the Prairies. Sean Young penalty, Andre Turkovanu scores, but just before halftime, Sean Hundal replies, and then Jordan Swibble, as he's been known to do, responds for Valour in the second half before rather unlucky Sean Hundal own goal gives Pacific the 3 points. Saturday, York United and Atlético Ottawa their first loss of 2024, 2-1, courtesy of a Brian Wright double, who is now your CPL Golden Boot leader, with Emmer Didic scoring the lone goal for Ottawa. Then stoppage time, heartbreak again for Halifax. Kwesi Poku this time equalizer secures a 2-2 result for Forge. In Halifax, Massimo Ferrin had a brace to give them the lead after Benny Badibanga had opened the scoring. And of course, finally, our CPL match of the week, Cavalry, Vancouver FC, CPL on tour game, first of its name in Kelowna, 0-0. But that doesn't mean it wasn't quite the spectacle both on and off the pitch. And that's where we will begin at the Apple Bowl. I promise to spare you the Apple puns on this week's program, if mostly because I'm not half as clever as Gareth Wheeler. Maybe AGR, you'll have a couple in the bank. But first off, let's maybe just break down this match. Your thoughts on, again, what was an interesting one between Cavalry and Vancouver on maybe a smaller Apple Bowl pitch, and two sides that obviously are always going to go for the win, and we're intent on doing so again on Sunday.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting to see the size of the pitch, like you mentioned, but even just like the grass, right? Like it's something where, maybe if you're not used to kind of playing on that sort of surface, the grass seemed to play a bit long. And I think that also affected. Like there was one moment in the second half or twice where Shuski took a shot and it didn't hit the same way that he was used to. He probably thought it was just going to nestle in, and he looked down at his foot. It was interesting to see those conditions manifest themselves. But yeah, it was two aggressive teams. They're kind of going for it blow for blow. Vancouver was really pushing, and they're making Cavalry uncomfortable in their press. Cavalry, of course, though, they always had a moment of quality. This chance from Leighton Brooks there that we see, that header, and forced an incredible save from Callum Irving. I think it was something where it felt like Vancouver got the better of the blows, and the stats kind of reflected that, and definitely the chances within the game reflected that. But it definitely felt both teams were there to grab a win right until the end, and I think that narrow pitch ended up playing a big part, because you just won the ball back like Cavalry did here. You could just go right up the pitch and push, and that can be a huge advantage for two teams that are comfortable in transition. I wouldn't call Cavalry a transitional team, but they're comfortable there, and certainly Vancouver likes to be direct and play that in the counter when they win the ball back, and you saw that in this game.
Yeah, 1.75 expected goals for Cavalry in this match. For Vancouver in this match, three big chances as well. Like you said, they certainly had the better of the opportunities, but there was some big ones for both teams, despite the 0-0 scoreline. But just quickly taking a zoom out here at the spectacle in total, there can be no doubt that the city of Kelowna showed up and showed out for some Canadian Premier League action. 6,218 people in attendance, breaking the record for a sporting event held at the Apple Bowl. The first of this annual CPL on tour game, which the idea is obviously to bring the league to new markets and to showcase itself as, they explore potential expansion, as well as just showing off the quality product that is the Canadian Premier League right now. Alex, your thoughts on what seemed like an incredibly successful first edition of this initiative, and where it can kind of grow from here?
Yeah, it was incredible on many fronts. I mean, first off, you saw, I think it was 6-2-8-1, the final announced crowd, which Charlie informed us from on the ground that was the record for the Apple Bowl for any sort of event. So that first off was super impressive, and yeah, it's great because sometimes you can forget that as the game grows in this country, and you kind of go and make up from time lost in the past, maybe, that there's cities that haven't had this opportunity to experience the professional game in their city. And you can see when this many people show up on a rainy Father's Day in Kelowna, could have easily had their attention divided, attention elsewhere. They saw this as an opportunity to enjoy, tuck into the beautiful game. You can't understate how important that is for the game across the country, because we know the game has been here for a while. We know the game is popular here, but the reality is that a lot of markets haven't had this chance to embrace soccer. We've seen some non-traditional markets in the CPL. I just say that in the sense that 10, 20 years ago, soccer in Halifax was a very foreign concept, and look at how it's been embraced there. Well, now with these sorts of games, you get an opportunity to bring them one game, like, all right, here's an opportunity. And then from there, I think you can't help but look at a Kelowna and now like, all right, there's a viable path towards a team in the future. And as this league grows and as this game grows in this country as a whole, these sorts of opportunities can be huge for those in the community. I think of all those kids I saw in the crowd. That's a memory for a lifetime. And I'm sure hearing the stories of a Rob Friend and some of these other players from Kelowna that we heard, I'd also be inspiring to think, okay, there's players who've gone and done pretty big things in this game while being from here, and now all of a sudden there might be a professional team in the nearby future. You have the memories of this game. That sort of stuff could be a huge catalyst for what's to come.
Exactly. The difference between, these young kids watching players on TV and, overseas, and seeing, maybe I could reach that, and seeing them right in front of them, and knowing, they went to the same schools, they were at their schools, showing up, that kind of thing. Like it's so much more tangible, I think, for these kids now in these communities. And that's a big part of what the CPL tour is doing beyond, like we said, establishing potential expansion markets, is just this opportunity to get in front of the next generation and show them that there is this opportunity now that perhaps didn't exist. As promised, though, it isn't really the CPL newsroom without at least a little bit of Charlie O'Connor-Clark. So let's head to the Apple Bowl now, where he caught up with Vancouver FC's Sebastian Jakowski on the CPL on Tour weekend that was.
Post-game reaction from Kelowna, brought to you by Allstate. I'm joined by Sebastian Jakowski of Vancouver FC. Let's start with the day itself. Over 6,000 people here at the Apple Bowl. You guys have been in Kelowna all weekend. What has this whole experience been like for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. We were hoping to get 4.5, 5, 6 came out. We're more than ecstatic. Everyone was backing us. We're just excited about the opportunity to play in a different city, have a new fan base, and continue to grow the league. I think that's the most important part.
Yeah, I mean, that many people coming out, even when it was raining, kind of gross at kickoff.
Yeah.
So shout out to them. I know you've been in this community for a little bit now, kind of helping kind of spread the word. What's it been like kind of feeling that excitement to bring professional soccer to a new community?
I think it's amazing. I think there's definitely a lot of interest in soccer, which is exciting to hear. We were doing stuff all over with kids' youth clubs and schools and whatnot, and everyone was asking us how excited they are to come to the games, when the game is, all that stuff that they know and they're very interested, which is good for things to come in the future. So it's very exciting.
Let's just talk about the game itself. I mean, it was 0-0, but I don't think it was a boring 0-0.
No, I don't think so.
Chances at both ends. Just what was going through your head watching it from the bench and after you got into that kind of chaos?
Yeah, I mean, it was quick pace. I think we were expecting that. I mean, whenever these teams face each other, there's a little bit of a battle. One team wanted to both teams wanted to win, and I just wanted to come in and make an impact. I was unlucky with the chance off the cross from Paris there. I wish I buried that. Would have been nice to get that with the first touch, but yeah, a little unfortunate not to come out with anything, but a good game to watch for sure for fans.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just seeing how kind of end to end it was, how much physicality there was at times. Was it a fun game to be a part of, to get in there?
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, you kind of relish those kind of games. You want to get in and get going right away. And the intensity is so quick in this league. It's exciting to just jump into it and get going. And I hope the fans enjoyed it. Unfortunately, we weren't able to give them a goal, but hopefully there's a few more games to come here and they'll get a goal soon.
A valuable point for both teams. Vancouver FC back up into 4th after this 10th game of the 2024 regular season. Seb, thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
They were in Kelowna. Of course, Charlie O'Connor-Clark talked to Sebastian Jakowski after the game. Sorry, I had to get at least one of those in. But we've talked a lot about Kelowna. We've talked a lot about Vancouver FC. Let's touch on the visitors a little bit. Alex, Cavalry FC, 7 draws now from 10 matches thus far this season. The same number they had all of last season. Perhaps struggled, for me at least, a little bit more in the wide areas of the pitch because they didn't exist on Sunday, which is where a lot of their offense has come from this season, certainly with Fraser Aird and just the deliveries that he provides. What were your thoughts on their performance on Sunday and kind of their season to this stage? Again, where they aren't losing, but they're not necessarily winning the way they were in the past.
I'll say, to borrow your joke, it's 2024, so of course Cavalry drew the game. Right? It's been even in the Canadian Championship, they ended up drawing. So no, it's something where it was a bit strange to see how uncomfortable they were in their build-up in particular, because this is usually a Cavalry team that's very smooth in possession, building out the back. Like Marco Carducci making surprise errors, building out the back. He's someone who, you usually when he's on the ball at the back, you expect, all right, he's going to pick out a pass or go long. And even he was kind of struggling. I think the width definitely played a role in it as well. It felt like, typically in the last few weeks, they've been kind of playing like a 3-box-3, and they were kind of not able to employ that box as much. I think perhaps the absence of a Sergio Camargo was felt just because of Lucas Diaz, a different profile, creative player, but, he's kind of tucking on that left a bit more, kind of operating in some of the similar spaces to a Leighton Brooks. So I'd say it definitely felt like the pitch played a role, because they weren't able also to stretch out the pitch and open up the room for a Diaz and a Brooks to maybe if they're at Spruce Meadows or Atco Field, they're able to combine a bit more than they were able to, and maybe they're trying to overlap. And you see Vancouver they were so congesting in that those wide areas with the 4-4-2 or 4-2-2-2 that they employ. So I definitely, I think the build-up play and the maybe they weren't able to get as much in the middle either. Sometimes when you're struggling in wide areas, you have to play through the middle. You have to get going in central areas to open up the width, and Cavalry weren't really doing that either. And I think credit has to go to Vancouver to how they were congesting that area, but also I don't think Cavalry was was as comfortable in central areas as they were used to, and that played a huge role in the game.
And to wrap up this match, let's quickly go back to Charlie O'Connor-Clark, who spoke with Malcolm Shaw after Sunday's match.
Post-game reaction brought to you by Allstate. I'm joined by Cavalry FC's Malcolm Shaw. Malcolm, let's just start with the game itself. It was aggressive. It was end-to-end, but 0-0. Just how did you see it, both from the bench and once you got into it?
Yeah, obviously it was a little bit back and forth. We started off a little bit slow. It was about 15 minutes where we had some control, but then we lost control for about 20 minutes. But obviously we managed to keep it 0-0, and then we tried to make pushes. We had a few opportunities. They made some good saves, but unfortunately, game ended 0-0. So
it's a bit of a chaotic one at times. Is that down to knowing this team pretty well, being on a smaller grass pitch, kind of an unfamiliar environment?
Yeah, for us it wasn't too much of a change because we play on grass, every day. But obviously a new environment, neutral site, neutral fans. So we just tried to obviously come with the same mentality to get a result.
Yeah. Lastly, I think probably the most important thing here, we're here in Kelowna at the Apple Bowl, a record-breaking crowd, over 6,000 people. Yeah. Just for you guys, what was this experience like coming here to kind of a new place in the CPL and to experience this whole atmosphere?
Yeah, I think it's amazing that we could come to a neutral site and there could be this much of a turnout. 6,000 plus. That's a good day in any other market in the CPL, right? So again, it's good to see the game growing, and this could be a potential market. So it's we're fortunate to get the first opportunity to play for these people.
Absolutely. Again, 0-0 between Cavalry and Vancouver here in Kelowna, but I think a lot of people still left pretty entertained. A lot of chances at both ends. Malcolm, thank you so much.
Yeah, cheers.
Appreciate it.
Thanks again to our West Coast correspondent Charlie Okanagan-Clark for his work out in Kelowna this weekend. But let's move on to the East Coast now, where on Saturday, Halifax Wanderers, they host Forge FC. And the CPL script makers, they're doing a madness with this Halifax team this year, because for me, my soccer brain, on the rare occasion it works, it loves patterns and narratives. And for 90 minutes plus, it looked like we were getting a repeat of last year's fixtures between these two sides in Halifax, where both matches, the Wanderers, they beat Forge 2-1 with the winning goal coming on a penalty kick. That seems like it's going to happen again in this one. But then Kwesi Poku's there to spoil the kitchen party late in stoppage time again. Alex, 3 unbeaten now for the Wanderers, even if they still haven't won. Are they just minutes away from turning things around here, and they just need to kind of stay the course with the way they've been playing lately? Or is there still something missing from this group for you that is kind of preventing them from getting those obviously very invaluable first 3 points?
Yeah, I feel like, again, it's something where it's not easy. I think it's something where, if it was easy to diagnose, I think, Patrice Geyser would have probably, found a different solution by now. But I think it's something where sometimes, as funny as it is to say, it really comes down to, intangibles. It really comes down to the mental side of the game, because that's almost the thing with the Wanderers. And that's why it makes it hard to diagnose. If there were clear structural issues with the team, you could be like, all right, you could blow it up, switch things up. I think the reality is that as much as their struggles would come off from the mental side, certainly there are some areas that have stood out, like defensively. I think that's not the first time that a team has caught them with the cutback like that. I know earlier in the year, Carlos Gonzalez kind of, caught people by surprise. He's like, oh yeah, we liked, they scored 3 cutbacks in the game, and you winked. That was planned. So obviously that's a structural issue where the Wanderers midfield sometimes can get caught up a bit too high up the field. Maybe they're kind of cheating for offense, wanting goals, and then you get hit in transition. You're not able to get back as quickly. But I genuinely think it's as much on the mental side. What I mean by that is, as soon as it hits 85th minute and you're watching the Wanderers game, what do you think, right? Well, can they hold on? Will it happen again? And as soon as that sort of doubt creeps in, it can happen, right? It's something where you think about it, it happens. The Ottawa game where it was like 90 plus 10, they're up. Like, surely it doesn't happen, right? It happened. That sort of thinking creeps in your head. And I think now it's a few games in a row where, Wanderers Pacific as well. They should have won that game. You're up a man at home. You're pushing, but not in the back of your mind, you're like, are they even going to win? Might they lose? And all of a sudden, Pacific almost won the game late in that one. So it's something where for the Wanderers, they just need to get that feeling out of their head that, all right, if you play well, take your opportunities. And if you grab a lead, it's business. Get the job done. Get that first one over the line. Don't think about what happened in the past. Don't think about the future, because maybe also you're thinking, oh, we need to win because we're, at the bottom of the table. Don't think that either, because if you start get caught up in the future, you forget what's going on in the present. So it's something where rarely you see this from a team, but it genuinely is psychological, locking in and just focusing on the game at hand.
Let's go to the Wanderers grounds now and hear a little bit more about that Halifax mentality from a new signing for them on loan from York. That is Clément Baya.
I mean, it's like frustrating, like we did all the work and, like they scored first and then we had to come back and we came back and that's like, we did everything, and then they just scored at the end and it's like so frustrating for us, So yeah, it's kind of hard mentally, but like we have to push, we have to keep going and it's gonna come.
Frustrating for Halifax, but pretty frustrating for Forge as well, with wins kind of hard to come by for them lately in the league, at least. Just one win in their last 6. We know this team, I think performance-wise, we've seen probably the best performances of any CPL team for my money this season when Forge is at their very best, but they haven't maybe been getting that consistently, especially of lately. Alex, for you, what needs to be better for Forge over the next little bit if they are to kind of get themselves back towards the top of the table?
Yeah, I think it was just keeping the foot on the pedal and defensively keeping things tight. They've been relatively, considering they're 2 number 9s at least heading in the season. You thought, oh, Taryn Campbell, Jordan Hamilton, they're healthy, they'll be all right, right? Well, those two haven't been able to play, and Kwasi Poku stepped up, and he scores in this game. He's had some assists lately. They've been getting goals. That Badabanga Becker Borges combination, the triple Bs. Not much to say about that. It really has been on the defensive side of just all right, keeping your concentration. I thought, for example, in this game when Forge went up 1-0, the way they were playing immediately after, it felt like they could have went 2-3-0, and the fact they went and conceded 2, that was a bit uncharacteristic. Like, oh, you thought Forge usually when they get that lead and they could put the pedal down. So for Forge, I'd say it starts with the back, because typically, this team at their best, all they need is 1 or 2 to get the job done, because they're usually so good defensively, their underlying numbers. But they've kind of slipped a bit at that end, and I think in this game that was that showed, because I thought when it was 1-0, it felt like they had the game right there, and that's as we know for Forge, and they're at their best. They don't give much away for free. Like if you're going to go to Forge, it's like what Vancouver did earlier this year. It's you go, execute your game plan to perfection, win, go home, don't ask any questions. And I think in this game, Halifax were able to really ask some questions of Forge.
Yeah, and you mentioned all that offensive firepower. They add another weapon to their arsenal, and a very good one in Nana Ampoma, who comes on, could have scored, and then sets up the winner as well. This is a really exciting player that again he's just got to Hamilton this past week. So if this is what he can do, before he maybe has really gained his fitness and match awareness with this Forge team, this is a really, really exciting player that they've added as well. So the rich get richer. And kind of speaking on that crazy stat from Christian Jack that he pulled out yesterday on match night, Forge FC have never lost in a CPL regular season game in which they were leading. And this is probably as close, I think, as they've ever come with the 92nd or 93rd minutes of stoppage time when they were able to finish it off. But it's a mentality thing about this team. They don't lose easily. And let's hear from Forge FC's Benny Badibanga on that, because he had a great quote, I thought.
We are champions, so champion we cannot accept easy defeat, so we cannot give up. So that's what we did. It's not a goal who's going to change our mentality, and as a group we react. And today we had the chance to score and to equalize. So yeah, that's it.
Champions don't accept easy defeats, and it has been difficult to defeat the league leaders this year, Atlético Ottawa. In fact, no one had done it before York United did earlier on Saturday in a 2-1 victory, courtesy of a Brian Wright double. Alex, you were on this game for us over at campl.ca. Just how big of a win was this for York United early in the Benjamin Mora era to give themselves confidence? And what did you really like about their performance on Saturday?
Yeah, this was absolutely a massive result from York, and it was fascinating, of course, to cover this one closely and to see what it meant to them after the game. But I think the big thing you said there was the start of the Benjamin Mora era, right? I think this is something where, of course, a win like this would have been huge for whoever gets it, you beat a team that's undefeated in 9, playing excellent soccer as Ottawa has at home, where they're always strong. That in itself would have been a big victory. But for a guy, for a manager like Benjamin Mora, who's come in, he's had to, he's wanting on the fly to had to mold this team into kind of his style, make some tactical tweaks, do so while, in game 1 he was missing a bunch of key regulars. Even in game 2 he was still missing some key regulars. I think this is a huge vote of confidence, because there's no better way of a manager to prove, okay, this system is working. You got a good thing going on. Well, you go out and beat the league leaders on the road in a deserved performance. I think that can go a long way. And the biggest thing that stood out for me was defensively. This York team can score. That's no secret. I think they showed it last year at their best. They had some incredible games offensively. This year so far they've shown it. Brian Wright's been on fire, but defensively at times they've struggled in games. Sometimes they end up in these 3-2 games and are on the wrong side of it. And if you're going to win a title, you can't have those sorts of games. You have to keep things low vent. And in this game, Ottawa had 63% possession, and York unbothered. They were just sat back, compact. As Brian Wright said it well after the game, they were comfortable suffering. And then this York team in the past hasn't been comfortable suffering defensively. So I think Moore has asked them a lot of, all right, sometimes you're not going to have the ball. Sometimes it's going to be a grind side to side, up and down defensively, check your shoulders. But he's got them embracing that. And I think that's the biggest thing that stood out in the result. And that was the biggest reason why they won, because Ottawa, they break you down. We've seen it over the course of the year. Even if it doesn't come right away, they wear you down, they break you down. In York, they didn't bend, let alone break.
No, they absolutely didn't. And just to build on Brian Wright, obviously leading the league in scoring with 6 goals now. I think this is a bit of a story in the Canadian Premier League, where number 9s in general have just been a lot more prolific this season. He has 6, Worshevsky for Cavalry, Jordy Swivel has another one, and Ruben Del Campo, they all have 5. You see what Diaz and Dyer are doing out in Vancouver. There's a bit of an interesting golden boot race, and this year it's number 9s who are leading it, which I think in general is more fun, because obviously, that's what number 9s are meant to do. You want that one guy on your team who can just kind of bag those goals, put the ball in the back of the net. So that's been fun to see in the CPL this year, and very exciting to see Brian Wright and what he's been able to do for York United. But wrapping things up on the York side of things, let's hear from the aforementioned Benjamin Mora and his thoughts after the match.
Well, it feels very good, but also we need to analyze the game. For me, it's one more game. I know the importance of Atlético Ottawa. I know how they were coming from a good run, unbeaten. But I give credit to the boys. I give credit to my players that they did mostly what we train in the week. They executed by detail the tactical disposition that we came here to execute. So for in that matter, I'm calm, but we need to work a lot. There's too many mistakes in a lot of phases of the game. There's too many situations that we need to improve. We will improve even more. Coming here to play versus Atlético Ottawa for me was a good moment, the right timing to know if we are doing things correctly. And these 3 points show me that we are growing since I got here.
And on the Atlético Ottawa side of things, shambles, club in crisis. No, I'm just kidding. But I think we all presumed that in a league as close as the Canadian Premier League, this was going to happen eventually. They were going to drop a game. What are the keys now, Alex, to making sure, this doesn't, with such a great start to the season, and they're living on that momentum of, result after result and coming from behind against Halifax, and, the kind of magic that moments like that can build up. How do they make sure that, this speed bump maybe doesn't make them take their foot off the gas and derail what has been a historic start to a season?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating, because I think the big thing is, how do you respond? Because I think there's 2 ways you can use a loss like this. It can be a catalyst to bad things, or it can be a catalyst to good things. You can be like, all right, this is a sign that you're not invincible, you're not perfect. All right, buckle in, get back to work, and go at it. I thought Nathan Ingham provided a very interesting quote that Carlos Gonzalez apparently said all the way back in 22 after the game. He said that, or something along the lines of defeats show you what, victories can hide. And basically that's to say that when you're winning, you get a little comfortable. You think, oh yeah, like you're going to stroll up in 90 plus 10. You can still score just even if, you don't have your best game. You can still get draws when you maybe you should lose. You can get wins maybe when you should draw. Carlos Gonzalez, it was interesting after the game. He's like, look, this was funnily enough one of my favorite performances of the year. Like he thought there were games they won where they played much worse. So that's a good sign that, this wasn't a sign of things they'd been doing poorly in victories. But it shows that sometimes in this funny game, you can play fantastically, best performance of the season. You can lose 1-0, and you can also play absolutely awful, and you can win 1-0. So I think it's something where for Ottawa, and I think that's something they mention a lot, and I think they'll do. They don't really get too caught up in the victories and losses and draws, despite the strong start they've had. For them, really, they've been happy with the start because it's been good performances that have been getting their ruthless performances. So I think as long as they build off this, they should be in a good stead, because I think there's no reason why next week they should be in the game. It's not like they were hanging on for dear life during that 9-game streak. For most of the 9 games, they deserve what they got. In this game, arguably, they could have deserved a bit more. And I think they'll look at that and be like, all right, well, just lock in. Everyone's going to continue to give them their best in each game like York did. Well, just accept that challenge and get back to winning ways before this builds up. Because that's the most dangerous thing is we saw over in Halifax, right, where things build up negatively. You kind of get stuck in the bottom. Well, for Ottawa, everything's been building positively. Don't let one game get to you. And I don't think this team will, based on their mentality.
And we leave the nation's capital now on that lovely Spanish proverb from Carlos Gonzalez and go to where the CPL weekend began out in Winnipeg with a wild one where Pacific FC, they look like they're going to run away with it, scoring 2 goals early. Valour, a number of mistakes. Then Valour score on the last kick of the first half and then take over in the second half. And it looks like they are probably going to be the team to go on it and pick up 3 points. Then, of course, one more shift in the narrative, and it's an own goal against the run of play probably at that point that gives Pacific FC 3 points in Winnipeg, their first road win of the season. Special shout out to Daniel Zadravec, who making his pro debut and full value for a victory. Alex, I guess your thoughts on as much of a match of two halves as we're likely to see this season in the Canadian Premier League.
Yeah, that one was definitely a strange one. Definitely entertaining. Don't get me wrong. It was definitely the kind of game that when you're watching from a neutral perspective, you don't mind. But maybe one of those that that they always say coaches might be kind of pulling their hair out. Definitely, that might be end up being one of the situations. And yeah, it's something where Pacific were running away with it. It felt like it could have been 3, 4, 5-0. Like this is a statement performance on the road. They want to bounce back, get a big win for the standings. It was impressive. Andre Turcovino looked phenomenal. He was putting up a 10 out of 10 performance. Everything was looking dandy. Daniel Zadravec, first pro game. Everything was they were doing a great job in front of him. And then all of a sudden it just kind of turned, and it just turned with a small mistake. One that, you kind of head it back. You don't realize Sean Hundel's on the blind side. Hundel scores his first of the season. You wonder, okay, maybe they'll give a bit of life to Hundel, a bit of life to Valour. And then, yeah, it did. And that Jordy Swivel goal, I mean, you saw it. He's a man in form right now. I don't think many forwards are hitting a strike purer than that into the side nettings in transition off your back foot the way he was leaning. It was an incredible goal. And it just showed you the momentum turned. Valour right back in it. But I guess, in the sense, credit to Pacific, because that easily could have ended 3-2 for Valour the way it was going. So for them to lock in, knuckle in, respond, get a winner, I think that's something where overall, I guess it depends if you rate a strong start or a strong finish to the match better. If you saw their start, this win is what they deserve, but maybe you saw the second half, it isn't what they deserve. I think it's something where they from their perspective, they'll be happy they at least made good on their start. But I could see why Merriman's frustrated, because ultimately when you're a team like Pacific that wants to win titles, there's no world where you're up 2-0 that you should be in a threat to drop points. And I think knowing Merriman, that's something that probably really irked him after the game.
Well, that's a good lead into because, James Merriman does have lovely hair, but as you mentioned, he might have lost a few locks of it in Winnipeg on Friday night. And let's hear his thoughts on this match because obviously, they collect their first road 3 points of the season, but I thought his thoughts were a good way to wrap this up.
No, I think we take the 3 points, like you said. For sure, it's frustrating because I think this game should be finished in the first half. With all due respect, we were very good. The way we started, we're creating chances, and we're still missing that ruthlessness and decisiveness to finish the game when we should. And we let them in right before halftime, and then that gives them some energy, and they start well in the second half, and we deserve the 3 points overall. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating with letting them back into the game.
And before we move on from this weekend, let's take a quick peek at the CPL standings. Atlético Ottawa, they're still top, but by just 5 points now after their loss. Second place, Pacific FC now. They move up. Cavalry, meanwhile, and match week 10 below the playoff line. And, after their draw with Vancouver FC, but again, just 3 points below Pacific in second. If you blink, the standings will change. That's how close they are at this point in the Canadian Premier League season. And that will make next week incredibly intriguing as we look at those games now. Match week 11 in the Canadian Premier League begins with a midweek clash on Wednesday night at York Lions Stadium between York and Pacific. That's 7 Eastern for Pacific. Friday, it's a mouth-watering clash between the defending CPL Shield winners Cavalry FC and top of the table Atlético Ottawa at 7 Mountain, 9 Eastern at Atco Field, and then a doubleheader on Sunday with Forge hosting Valour in Hamilton at 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 Central, and finishing up in Langley as the Halifax Wanderers continue their search for the first 3 points of the season against Vancouver FC at 4 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, and 8 Atlantic on Sunday. And of course, we have a lot on our plate always between CPL. You got Euros going on, Copa America, but we always can make time for a bit of stoppage time. Let's bring on producer Benedict Rhodes right now. And Benny, what do you got for us this week on stoppage time?
Yeah, we'll start things off. We asked some fans on Twitter, where do you think the next stop of the CPL on tour schedule should go? And we got some interesting responses. The usual suspects: Quebec, the Prairies, the East Coast, Moncton, St. John's. We got Kitchener-Waterloo, Mitchell, for you.
Nice. That was me, I think. Right in that.
You got the territories, which I think is an interesting one. But I'm just wondering what you guys think. Where should the next CPL on tour game go?
Go for it, Alex.
You put me the pressure. I mean, in that case, I'll go for the obvious. I think there has to be a game, and we'll give it to lots to choose from in the province of Quebec. But I'd say go Quebec City. I think go out to the the beauty of that area. Especially the fact that there is kind of already professional soccer in Montreal. I think would be a great chance to see what the market could do in Quebec City, because we know that province is a hotbed for the sport, a hotbed for talent, a hotbed for those who love the game. I think would be an incredible opportunity, and I think there's a lot of potential there too, because of the teams in the league. There's quite a few that have quite a strong Quebecois representation. You'd have to imagine like a Halifax and a Forge might be favorites to play in a game like that based on their roster makeup. And I think it would be incredible to push and create a spark in a province that is clearly just there. You saw with the Saint Laurent Can Champ game, right? Like that province is just biting at the bit really to get an opportunity to have pro soccer.
There can only be one, the jewel of Southern Ontario. Kitchener, my hometown. Who needs yacht parties? Let's fire up the grill in the backyard of the Tierney compound. Have a few Carlsbergs, 0.0, of course, and enjoy that Southern Ontario hospitality. But in all honesty, I would really love to see a match in my local community. It's a thriving soccer community, unless you watch my men's league team, and then you'll think otherwise. But yeah, I think it would be an excellent spot for the CPL on tour, and hopefully eventually a CPL club.
Yeah, I think as well, all good options, but I think the East Coast would be special as well. Halifax needing a local rival, and I think St. John's, where Canada qualified for the '86 World Cup, it might be kind of special to do a game there and sort of tie in that history as well. That'd be a pretty cool moment, I think. Moving on, Canada speaking of Canada, they play a pretty important game this week. Starting off the Copa America against Argentina on Thursday night. Who's one player that you guys think Canada needs to step up for Canada in order for them to get out of the group stage of this tournament?
I'll take the obvious one because I feel like Alex will have some great ones on this, but I think Jonathan David. You need your number 9 scoring goals, and he's a prolific, obviously, scorer throughout Europe, throughout his time at Lille. He maybe hasn't had his defining moment in a big tournament for Canada yet. This is a great opportunity for him to show up and have a great Copa America, score some goals, lead the line for Canada. I think if Jonathan David is going, Canada's going in this competition.
Yeah, man, this is a tough one 'cause there's so much I can pick. Again, I'll stick with a similar theme as to my first answer. You got to go with the obvious sometimes, and I think for Canada, you're only going to go as far as Alphonso Davies takes. I think it's important to mention him this morning. He was named Jesse Marsh's Canada men's national team captain, right? So that's obviously a big responsibility, and it's not the most obvious pick. Obviously, there's a lot, some wondered if a Stefan Eustáquio could have earned that role. So it's a big, pressure on Davies that some are looking at him like, all right, is he ready to lead? Is he ready to step up? It's easy to forget that he's right now with Russell Rowe's addition. I think he's the 4th youngest guy on this team, but he's also been there since 2017. He's the team's best player. And sometimes in the past, he's been capable or guilty of doing a bit too much of wanting to take that responsibility. This is a huge challenge for him. And this is the sort of challenge that great players often face in their careers, especially around this age. I'm very curious to see how he responds. I think the parallel I'd use right away, just because the one I'm more familiar with and I've seen, I remember a lot of the same things being said about Kylian Mbappe when he was named captain ahead of the 22 World Cup. Should have been the France's number 7, Antoine Griezmann, the veteran of that team, the heartbeat. You kind of see the parallels. Canada's number 7, the heartbeat of that midfield. Was Mbappe ready? Turns out he grew into the role incredibly, and he's been super well spoken, incredible leader. For Davies, I want to see him respond in that sort of way. And then, of course, on the pitch, just do his thing. Because I think if he can have some 10 out of 10 performances, Canada will typically do well in those sorts of games.
Just building off that super quickly, one other player that I'm very interested to see and will very much be important to complementing Alphonso Davies is Liam Miller. A player on his side of the pitch, that combination of what Miller can offer him going forward and also coverage-wise defensively. I think that partnership is going to go a long way towards Alphonso having his best tournament. So I'm really excited to see what Liam Miller can do at this Copa America. And I think a player who's quickly emerging as a really, really important one for Canada.
I'll just add as well in net, whoever plays in net, I think it'll probably be Max Crepeau, or I hope it's Max Crepeau. I think whoever's in net will be important. We saw Crepeau against France, some huge saves, including on Mbappe late in that game, and he'll be crucial for or whoever's in net will be crucial for how Canada plays in this game, especially if the center backs Cornelius and Bombito were expecting. I think if they let anyone through, which they didn't do a ton of in those 2 friendlies, but the goalkeeper will be pretty important. And moving on to the other side of the things, Canada's playing Argentina, Peru, Chile. Who's one opposition player other than Lionel Messi, of course, that you guys are excited to see play against Canada?
I'll go for an obvious one as well, but Angel Di Maria, still an important player for Argentina. Scored, I think, 2 of their past 3 games, and now we'll probably get to see him a little bit more as Inter Miami are going to somehow fit him under their cap. But I think always been an underrated member of the Argentina side, and in this generation, a really top baller for Canada to test themselves against.
I think after 2 obvious picks for my first 2 I had to go for a bit of a hipster pick.
Lovely.
Give me Ben Brereton Diaz on Chile. I just think his story has been fascinating ever since, he randomly found out he was eligible for Chile. I think it was like ahead of the 2021 Copa America, showed up, balled out. It was incredible, that tournament, and now has become a key part of Chile. Hopefully he keeps that place. I know there's been some controversy between him and coach Ricardo Gareca, who, is surprised he hasn't learned Spanish yet, given he's been with the national team for 4 years or whatever it is now, because time flies. But I just love Brereton Diaz's profile. So quick for his size. He's 6'2". He's built like a British lad, but then, you kind of see he plays with a bit of South American flair. I wonder if it's maybe just experiencing, Copa America, experiencing World Cup qualifiers. It's going to be fascinating to see a player like that, especially that Chile game might be, it's crucial for Canada. Argentina, it's a bonus for Canada, but if you're going to get out your group, you got to do well against Peru and especially Chile, because ever since Gareca's arrived, this Chile team looks like a threat, and for their perspective, even if Gareca and Berton Diaz have had their differences, you'd imagine he'll be key for him in this tournament.
Awesome. Benedict, thank you so much for providing us with another entertaining edition of Stoppage Time, and we'll blow the final whistle on this week's show there. Alex, man, it's been so great to have you back on. Thanks so much for stopping by again.
Oh, my pleasure. It was great to be on and chat about a great weekend and a great week ahead, of course, with the Canadian men's national team. So looking forward to it.
Exactly. And we'll leave you with one final trip here on the CPL Newsroom presented by Volkswagen to the Apple Bowl in Kelowna, as we hear from Vancouver FC's Caden Chung, who spoke after the match with One Soccer's Oliver Platt on all things CPL on tour.
And it's Oliver Platt standing by with our Gatorade Performer of the Match.
Caden, deadlocked in the end here in Kelowna. What did you make of your side's performance today?
Yeah, it was good. I thought we put pressure on early and we created some good chances from our press there. We have a good system in play this year that I think you guys have seen, that when we press high, we get these opportunities. I think towards the middle of the first, we kind of set off a little bit and regrouped, and then we were able to press again for the last 15. And then the second half, it was a bit more of a transitional game. Tired legs, the surface is a bit heavy, but I thought we did well to defend the chances that Calgary created later on in the game, and we did well to keep the ball in their end towards the last 5-10 minutes. So I thought it was a good game for us.
You've had to chop and change a little bit at the back with some of the unavailability in recent weeks. Was a clean sheet a big priority for you today as well?
Yeah, absolutely. The main thing coming out of the half was let's keep a clean sheet here. Let our attacking players kind of set us up for chances and goals if they came. But our job, this today was against a good Calgary side. Very physical in the air. You've seen Fraser, in recent weeks being able to pick out crosses, but I thought we defended well, and very important clean sheet for us.
Just lastly, another BC community getting professional soccer. What did you make of the atmosphere and kind of the whole weekend here?
Yeah, it was amazing. We came in on Thursday. We had a little bit of a chance to explore the area and get to know the community a little bit better. We were out at schools and youth soccer games throughout the weekend, and to see the turnout here, I really hope that we can expand this league and get more teams and crowds like this, that you see that they're hungry for football. So it's a great thing that we did today, and hats off to the CPL and the community here in Kelowna.
Thanks, Caden. Well done today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.